Okay, today we're looking at the Beezer book, 1981. This is the annual, put out in the end of 1980, as Beezer would always do. They'd release the upcoming year's annual around, Thanksgiving, Christmas kind of time, because these would make great books. As usual, there's kind of a funny scenario on the front cover, followed by the resolution of that here. And so it's the fan favorites of Pop, Dick, and Harry. Um, the year is not on the spine, so I added that in because, if you got it on the bookshelf and you just got 20 of these that just say the Beezer book, it's kind of tough to tell which one you're pulling off the shelf. So a label maker really helps there. Now, the interior cover, again, you've got lots of different characters listed, having some fun here at the Beezer Rodeo. And then the back interior cover is also the resolution. So I really do like that, how both the exterior and interior cover play the same way with the intro and then the resolution here. This is the book belongs to page. My copy's already been filled out by the original owner. And nice welcome to the Beezer book. We start off with a ginger, one-page ginger. That's really typical for a lot of these Beezer books. Just some fun scenario happens. We have Pop, Dick, and Harry, the twins and their dad, always kind of pulling mischief with one another. Here this time, Pop trying to pulls the mischief on his sons. He wants them out of the house so he can relax, and ends up, having them. They're going to have a long band practice. Little Mo, she's sweet little girl with her friend. Usually, always is getting bullied by this Mugsy character, and she's got a nice inventive way to deal with him. Boss of the Bad Lads. It's kind of rare, just a one-page boss in the Badlands story. The perennial robbers who usually are foiled. Young Sid, the Copper's kid. This is, he's got kind of a slower-witted father in the police force, and it's usually the son here who helps end up catching the bad guy. So it's usually a nice, clever story. Baby Crockett, that's always cute. One pager here. This is the Numbskulls. This is usually one of my favorites. It's sad there's just one Numbskull story in this particular annual, but he ends up going to the beach, and the people operating him, living in his brain and controlling his actions, they're having some fun tangling with some crabs. It's always a good story, always a well done laugh. Our Sheriff's an Ape. This is usually a weaker story, at least in my opinion. It drags on a little too long for a comic humor story, and it's just, they're usually very much the same and not that innovative. I mean, the bad guy and how it happens is different, but it's more of the same usually. The real sheriff's incapacitated in some way, and then the ape sheriff does something not particularly bright, letting the bad guy get away, and then he's able to solve it and capture the bad guy, and we've got the bananas reward. Here's Smithy, the dirty kid. Here he's trying to do his best, clean up, and just bad things keep happening, and it's more of a disaster. The Bad Lads, these are always funny with the boss, Fingers and Nuck, trying to pull some kind of robbery, usually end up getting foiled. Hillies and the Billies, the kind of American redneck stereotype, always feuding these two families, always have some kind of innovative way that one of them succeeds. Now, this is a plug story that's kind of rare in Beezer. It really should have belonged into a Beano. Plug just does not belong in Beezer. He's kind of got this grotesque appearance, and it's kind of the grotesque humor. It's really more a Beano thing. It's unfortunate here to see him in Beezer, which while they're both humor comics, they do kind of have slightly different audiences. Colonel Blink, always funny. He just has poor eyesight, sees poorly, and there's a lot of hilarious activities that develop from that. Here again, Numbskulls and Colonel Blink only have one story each in this 1981, which is really just unfortunate because they're top of the line. Another one-page Baby Crockett, Pop, Dick, and Harry here. It's a cold day. They're fighting over the radiator, and antics ensue. And here's their just comeuppance. The mother is looking after a neighbor's baby, so the baby gets the radiator. They're all out on the cold. Banana Bunch. Here, sometimes Brainy has some clever idea that goes wrong. Here it did go wrong, but still sorts it out. And then we get to the heartwarming story, Red Rory's Revenge. There's always one longer, kind of one-off heartwarming story. This is about this wonderful stag that the kid and his grandma, they're always putting out food for the stag, treating it well. Someone tries to muscle in on the grandmother's business, and the stag kind of takes care of him. So there's antics going back and forth, but eventually the stag defeats this interloper, and all's well that ends well. So another nice heartwarming story, good art on that. Baby Crockett again for a one-pager. Some good Beezer teasers, as they say. And again, just wonderful art here. Here's First Ada. Now, she did not run very long in the Beezer. You can see why the art's not the best, and it's just, it's just some slapstick humor and nothing really original. Here she's, loves, pretending to be a nurse, has to take care of, some of her cousins, and they're pulling pranks on her, slapstick. She ends up tying them up in bandages. So just nothing really innovative, nothing that funny, just really basic slapstick, and I can see why the Beezer got rid of her there. Little Mo, again, with her perennial bully Muggsy. Again, she usually gets the best of him in a comedic fashion. Back to the Hillies and Billies, and I'm glad there's at least two of their stories here in this book, just due to the lack of stories for Numbskulls and Colonel Blink. Crooked Smiles, this is the Bad Lads, and they have kind of one-panel joke gags, so a bunch of those. It's always pretty funny. They're, always up to no good and usually never accomplish their goal. Back to Pop, Dick, and Harry. It's a third appearance in the annual. I guess the editors this year just really like Pop, Dick, and Harry, but they're always, perennial classics, and they are on the cover, nonetheless. Back to Plug again. He should not be here in the Beezer. It's just the grotesque humor that does not fit with the rest of Beezer. Some puzzle picks, just some various trivia questions. Went answers down here. Wonderful art on all that. Another young Sid the Copper Kid story. This one's pretty funny. The dad's trying to get the day off, calls in, says he's hurt his foot, and young Sid ends up causing several injuries. So when the boss comes to check in on him, he's in fact actually hurt, and gets the rest of the week off. So Scrapper, usually there's just one of these. And here he's in a fight, has wonderful moves, thinks he's being recruited by a boxing promoter, but no, the guy wants to put him in a ballet play because he's so quick on his feet. Another Bad Lads story. Here's Joe Soap. There's just Joe Soap in this one. There's not the very similar Licko, Mr. Licko. So here his grandfather's an inventor, creates bubbles that do really strange things. Here it's turn people into hippos. He ends up unfortunately turning the kid's dad, the grandfather's son, into a hippo, and their ensuing trials and dealing with that. And it's always kind of a good story here with Joe Soap. Back to a Smithy story, just the dirty kid. Here, the mother's using him to brush off a brush salesman, so that's always kind of funny. Another baby Crockett. The bad lads here. This time they're trying to do their robberies without Nuck, who always mess things up. And, well, they end up in jail, and Nuck's still on the outside, so maybe it was good he wasn't part of the gang this time. And then we finally end it here with a two-page Ginger story. Usually funny. Usually it doesn't really rely on the fact he's a ginger, but he's just still a real classic character. Again, just wonderful Beezer book. When Beano and Dandy were still just kind of monochrome, not full color, Beezer was there full color and just wonderful, hilarious stories that typically did not rely on, just grossness like Plug here. And so, other than those few Plug stories, really got a wonderful Beezer book.